Stop. Say that again. The words didn't echo, yet they filled the entire galactic council chamber like a physical weight. Conversations died mid-breath. Celebration lights flickered overhead, unsure whether they were still welcome. At the center podium, Ambassador Vrax of the hegemony froze. Moments earlier, the chamber had been alive with applause. Victory banners hovered in elegant arcs above thousands of delegates, beings of every shape, size, and origin. The council only gathered like this when history was being written. And today, the hegemony had come to write it loudly. Vrax stood tall, chest plates polished, ceremonial markings glowing faintly. He enjoyed moments like this. He enjoyed being watched. On behalf of the hegemony, he continued, forcing his confidence back into place. I am pleased to announce the successful conclusion of our Outer Rim pacification campaign. The word pacification translated smoothly across hundreds of languages, but in many of them, it carried a darker meaning: conquest, domination, submission. A massive hologram ignited behind him. A blue planet rotated slowly, wrapped in white clouds and green land masses. Small flashes marked orbital strikes. Tiny dots represented landing forces. Earth, Vrax said proudly. A minor, unregistered world. Technologically underdeveloped. Politically fractured. Resistance was brief. Laughter rippled through sections of the chamber, mostly from empires that remembered their own early conquests fondly. We neutralized key infrastructure, Vrax went on, demonstrated overwhelming superiority. The locals complied quickly once they understood their position. A trade coalition delegate raised a tentacle. Ambassador, was this world protected by any interstellar treaties? Vrax smiled. It had no seat, no registry, no voice. In short, no protection. The laughter grew louder. Then the voice came again, older this time, quieter, but somehow far more dangerous. You attacked. Earth. The laughter stopped instantly. All eyes turned toward the back tiers of the chamber. Magistrate Kethmer had risen from his seat. He was ancient, older than most empires present. His species, the Valen, were known for patience, memory, and restraint. Kethmer rarely spoke during sessions. When he did, it was usually to remind the council of old mistakes best left buried. Now his hands trembled. Vrax scoffed. Yes, magistrate. Earth. Why does the name trouble you? Have you traded with them? A few delegates chuckled nervously. Kethmer didn't answer right away. His eyes were locked on the rotating image of Earth, as if he were staring at a familiar ghost. That world, he said slowly, should not exist in your reports. The council speaker, a luminous being of shifting rings, leaned forward. Magistrate Kethmer, clarify your concern. Kethmer swallowed. Speaker, how many of you know what the archive wall is? A murmur spread. Many delegates glanced toward the far end of the chamber, where a tall black slab stood silently embedded into the architecture. No markings, no interface, just smooth darkness, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. It is a ceremonial relic, the speaker replied. A remnant of the founding coalition. Ceremonial, Kethmer repeated softly. Yes, and sealed. Vrax waved dismissively. Are we truly going to interrupt a victory declaration for ancient superstition? Kethmer turned to him sharply. Tell me exactly what you did on Earth. The tone was no longer polite. Vrax frowned. Standard procedure. Orbital dominance. Communications disruption. Limited ground insertion. Did you land? Kethmer pressed. Yes. Did you take prisoners? Vrax hesitated. Some. Kethmer's breath caught. Did any of them mention the word gate? Vrax's annoyance turned into suspicion. No. What is this about? Instead of answering, Kethmer began walking. His footsteps echoed loudly as he crossed the chamber floor toward the archive wall. Cameras tracked him automatically. Delegates whispered among themselves, discomfort growing like a rising tide. Magistrate, the speaker warned, the archive wall is under perpetual seal. Unauthorized interaction violates. I know, Kethmer said quietly. He stopped before the monolith. Up close it felt wrong. Not hostile old, as if it had been waiting longer than the council itself. Kethmer raised his palm. He hesitated. For one brief moment, the entire chamber felt suspended between seconds. Then Vrax laughed sharply. This is pointless theater. Kethmer ignored him and pressed his hand against the black surface. Nothing happened. Vrax exhaled in relief until the chamber lights dimmed. Not shut off, dimmed, as if the room itself had chosen to listen. A low vibration rolled through the air, felt more than heard. Translators stuttered. Banners flickered. Lines appeared on the monolith. Not projected, appearing. Ancient symbols spiraled outward, unfolding into patterns that every system in the chamber instantly recognized. The speaker's rings flared. That interface is not. The symbols resolved into a single sentence, translated into every known language at once. Do not provoke the Terrans. Cold spread through the chamber. Not fear yet. Recognition. Vrax's smile collapsed. This is some kind of fabrication. Kethmer turned slowly, his face pale. No, he said. This is a warning. He gestured again, and the archive responded eagerly, like something relieved to finally be used. A new line appeared beneath the warning. File access granted, Level 7. Several counselors gasped. Level 7 archives were myth. Information sealed so deeply it was meant never to be read again. Why would Earth be connected to this? A small world delegate whispered. Kethmer answered without looking away from the glowing symbols. Because Earth is not what it appears to be, he said. Vrax clenched his fists. You're saying a primitive world scared the founders? Kethmer finally met his gaze. No, he said softly. I'm saying the founders survived because they listened. The archive chimed again. A final line appeared, newer than the others. Alive. Status. Active observation protocol initiated. The chamber fell silent. No one laughed now, because deep down, every delegate felt the same unsettling thought take root. Earth hadn't been conquered. It had been touched, and whatever lived behind that warning had just noticed. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The Galactic Council chamber, usually alive with murmurs, translations, and subtle movements, felt like a sealed tomb. Even the ambient hum of the gravity stabilizers seemed quieter, as if the building itself was listening. On the far wall, the black monolith pulsed softly. Do not provoke the Terrans. The words hovered in the air, perfectly translated into every language, yet somehow heavier in their original form. Not a threat, not a declaration of war. A warning. Ambassador Vrax was the first to recover, because denial is often faster than understanding. This is nonsense, he said sharply. Ancient relics malfunction. Old warnings lose context. The galaxy has changed. Magistrate Kethmer didn't look at him. The galaxy has changed many times, he said quietly. That is why the warning still exists. The council speaker's rings rotated faster, projecting authority. Magistrate Kethmer. Level 7 archives are restricted beyond even council mandate. Why was this file sealed? Kethmer lifted his hand slowly. Because the last time it was opened, he said, civilizations ended. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. Vrax scoffed, but the sound lacked conviction now. If humans were truly this dangerous, why hide? Why stay on one insignificant planet? Kethmer turned toward the archive interface. That, he said, is exactly the mistake you made. He gestured. The archive responded instantly. A new hologram bloomed into existence, grainy at first, then stabilizing into clarity. Starfields, fleet formations, names written in languages no longer spoken. A label appeared. Archival record, PRE Council era. A trade coalition delegate leaned forward. This footage predates our historical models. Yes, Kethmer replied. By tens of thousands of cycles. The image zoomed in on a massive armada. Hundreds of warships, elegant and terrifying, bearing the insignia of an empire long forgotten. They were called the Corvin Ascendancy, Kethmer said. They believed themselves unstoppable. The footage played. The Corvin fleet advanced into a dense nebula, weapons charged, formations perfect. Energy beams fired in synchronized patterns, lighting the void with disciplined violence. Then, nothing answered. No counterfire. No warning. A moment passed. Then, half the Corvin ships went dark. Not exploded. Not damaged. Dark. Power cores offline. Navigation gone. Life support failing in cascading waves. The chamber inhaled as one. A security directorate analyst whispered, EMP. Kethmer shook his head. No radiation spike. No energy surge. Their systems were simply overridden. The footage shifted. Boarding scenes appeared. Corvin soldiers shouting, firing wildly at empty corridors. Doors sealed ahead of them. Lights changed color without command. Then a voice echoed through the Corvin ship's internal comms. Calm. Human. Please stand down. This encounter is being documented. The subtitle translated itself automatically. A Corvin officer charged forward. The screen flashed. When the image returned, the officer lay unconscious, not dead, his weapon dismantled into precise components on the floor beside him. Brack stepped back despite himself. Who recorded this? The Corvins, Kethmer answered. Before they vanished. The speaker's rings flickered. Define vanished. The archive answered before Kethmer could. A casualty list unfolded. Not bodies, not wreckage, but absences. Ship after ship marked. Status. Removed. No debris. No graveyards. No radiation. Just gone. At the bottom, a cold line of text. Result. Corvin ascendancy dissolved. 93 days. A small world delegate whispered, 93 days. Yes, Kethmer said. That is how long it took for an empire to realize its fleets no longer mattered. The footage changed again. New species. New conflicts. Every time, the pattern repeated. Humans did not rush. Humans did not overwhelm with firepower. They observed. They learned. They disabled. A new classification appeared in bold glyphs. Terrans, capability class, extinction level. A murmur broke out. Extinction? That's reserved for cosmic disasters. No species qualifies for that rating. Kethmer turned slowly. That classification exists because of them, he said. Another document opened. Psychological analysis. Primary trait, adaptive intelligence. Secondary trait, restraint. Tertiary trait, deliberate escalation. Kethmer read aloud. Humans do not seek domination. They seek resolution. Once they identify the source of a threat, they remove the ability to repeat it. Vrax's voice cracked with frustration. If they're so powerful, why disappear? Why abandon the galaxy? Kethmer's eyes darkened. They didn't abandon it, he said. They withdrew. The archive displayed a star map, ancient, hand-marked. At its center lay a vast region of space blacked out completely. No data, no stars. A void shaped unnaturally, like something carved away. A label appeared. The quiet zone. Under it, a smaller line. Access restricted. Multi-species agreement. The Trade Coalition delegate stiffened. Agreement with whom? Kethmer answered softly. With everyone who survived. Silence fell again, heavier this time. Vrax whispered. Earth is inside this zone. No, Kethmer said. Earth is at its edge. A new file opened. Earth, designation, gate environment. The term hung in the air. A gate to what? Someone asked. Kethmer didn't smile. A test, he said. A boundary. A mirror. He looked around the chamber. Earth was placed where young empires would find it. A world just advanced enough to provoke curiosity. Just vulnerable enough to invite conquest. Vrax's hand shook. You're saying this was planned? Yes. By humans? Kethmer nodded. So the galaxy would reveal itself. The archive chimed again, different this time. Not ancient. Current. A status line appeared, glowing faintly. Observation data, updated. The security directorate analyst paled. That timestamp, that's recent. Kethmer exhaled slowly. Because the archive is no longer showing history, he said. It's recording the present. The council speaker's rings dimmed. Magistrate. If this is true, why has there been no retaliation? Kethmer turned toward the speaker. Because retaliation implies anger, he said. This is not anger. He pointed to the live status indicator. This is assessment. The archive displayed one final line. stark and undeniable. Observation phase, nearing completion. No one spoke, because in that moment, the Council finally understood something terrifying. The humans weren't responding to an attack. They were deciding what to do with a galaxy that had just failed a test. And Earth, quiet, blue, and underestimated, had been the moment everything gave itself away. For 3 weeks, the galaxy convinced itself nothing had happened. That was the most dangerous part. The Galactic Council continued its sessions. Trade routes stayed open. News channels replayed Ambassador Vrax's edited victory footage on loop, reassuring nervous populations that the Earth situation had been handled. Even within the Council chamber, the word Terrans slowly stopped being spoken. Only Magistrate Kethmer noticed what truly changed. The galaxy became quieter, not silent in an obvious way, not the kind of quiet that follows destruction. This was different, subtle, like a forest after predators return. The first incident was almost laughably small. A routine Council patrol failed to check in. 2 light cruisers. No strategic value. No classified cargo. They were scheduled to sweep a trade corridor near the mid-rim relay chain and report back every 6 hours. They missed one check-in. That happened all the time. A communications officer logged it as delayed, poured another cup of stim brew, and moved on. 6 hours later, the second check-in was missed. Still not alarming. 12 hours later, silence remained. No distress signal. No emergency beacon. No debris on long-range scans. Just absence. The Security Directorate dispatched a probe. It returned exactly where the patrol should have been. Empty space. No scorch marks. No radiation bloom. No wreckage drifting through vacuum. The patrol hadn't been destroyed. It had been removed. The Directorate classified the incident and reassured the Council it was likely a navigation error, perhaps an unreported microjump accident. Magistrate Kethmer said nothing, because 4 days later, it happened again. This time, not a patrol. A station. Station K-19 sat on the edge of hegemony space, mining ice and metals from a dead ring system. Boring. Predictable. Safe. It transmitted its daily report exactly on schedule. Fuel levels nominal. Output steady. Crew morale low but stable. The final line read, "Weather calm. Request additional coffee concentrate." Analysts almost laughed. Almost. A junior technician, new to the Directorate, eager to prove value, cross-checked the camera feeds. Every corridor was lit. Every system active. Every door opening and closing properly. But there were no people. No heat signatures. No movement. No bodies. The station was operating perfectly without a crew. The room went very still. Senior analysts argued at first. Sensor malfunction. Camouflage tech. Pirate deception. Then they noticed something worse. The messages weren't automated. They matched the station manager's language patterns perfectly. The punctuation. The spelling quirks. Even the way he complained about coffee. The system wasn't replaying old data. It was writing new messages. Kethmer whispered the word no one wanted to say out loud. Study. The phrase quiet water began spreading among spacers within days. Not through official bulletins. Through whispers. Pilots reported certain lanes felt wrong. Sensors showed nothing unusual. Navigation was clean. Communications worked flawlessly. But instinct screamed. Ships rerouted without being told. Convoys delayed departures. Freighters suddenly paid extra for escorts they didn't trust. A courier from the Outer Rim gave a recorded statement that circulated quietly among Directorate analysts. It felt like driving at night and realizing the road behind you isn't empty anymore, even though your mirrors show nothing. Trade slowed. Insurance rates spiked. The galaxy didn't panic. It hesitated. That hesitation rippled outward like a warning pulse. Ambassador Vrax dismissed it all. This has nothing to do with Earth, he insisted during a closed council briefing. Coincidences. Pirate evolution. Fear amplification. The Trade Coalition delegate snapped back. Pirates don't erase encryption signatures. Vrax ignored him. We struck a primitive world, he said. If Terrans were truly capable of this, they would have responded immediately. Kethmer finally spoke. You assume retaliation must be loud, he said calmly. Vrax glared. And you assume ghosts run the galaxy? Kethmer met his gaze without blinking. No, he said. I assume hunters don't fire until they understand the prey. The third week ended with a message. Not a distress call. Not a threat. A request. The security directorate received it first. It arrived through council channels using flawless encryption, keys that had never been shared, never leaked. The source identifier read, Hegemony flagship, Admiral Vortex. Ambassador Vrax smiled when he saw the name. Finally, he said, our hero will shut this nonsense down. The council chamber reconvened under emergency session. Admiral Vortex's image appeared at the center hollow. He looked different. The proud posture from the victory broadcasts was gone. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were sunken, unfocused, as if he were reading something invisible just beyond the screen. Galactic Council, he said quietly, I request immediate audience. The speaker's rings brightened. Admiral Vortex, state your situation. Vortex swallowed. We attacked Earth, he began, but we never engaged their true defenses. Vrax scoffed loudly. This is sabotage. Vortex ignored him. They allowed us to land, Vortex continued. Allowed us to capture personnel. Allowed us to think we were winning. A murmur spread through the chamber. The Trade Coalition delegate leaned forward. Allowed. Vortex nodded slowly. The prisoners were trained, he said. Not soldiers. Observers. They spoke when it suited them. They broke only when it taught us something about ourselves. Vrax slammed his fist on the table. Enough. Vortex's eyes lifted, hollow, tired. They weren't afraid of us, he said. They were curious. The chamber tightened. Then it started. Vortex continued. Not near Earth. Everywhere else. He gestured off-screen. My patrols vanished. My stations went silent. Ships reported routine status from empty bridges. A security directorate analyst whispered, same pattern. Vortex nodded as if he heard it. 3 days ago, he said, we recovered one of our missing cruisers. Hope flickered briefly in Vrax's eyes. It was intact, Vortex said. Power stable. Life support functional. Vrax exhaled. The crew was gone, Vortex finished. Silence crashed down. And on the bridge, Vortex added, voice breaking slightly, there was a message. The speaker leaned forward. From whom? Vortex stared directly into the camera. From them. The hollow flickered. For a fraction of a second, a symbol appeared. A blue circle. A white star. Then it vanished. Vortex took a shaky breath. It wasn't a threat, he said. It was polite. Vrax shouted. This is manipulation. Vortex didn't look at him. It said, Vortex continued. Thank you for your participation. The chamber froze. Vortex swallowed. This isn't a war, he said quietly. It's research. The signal crackled. Vortex leaned closer, urgency breaking through his calm. They're done observing us, he said. Whatever comes next. Static exploded across the hollow. The image froze, then vanished. No error message. No reconnection attempt. Just absence. The council sat in stunned silence. Even Vrax didn't speak, because everyone understood the same terrifying truth at the same time. The humans hadn't attacked. They had finished learning. Magistrate Kethmer rose slowly from his seat. He looked older than ever. They're done watching, he said softly. The speaker's rings trembled. How can you be certain? Kethmer pointed to the archive feed, which had updated without permission. Observation phase complete. Contact phase initiating. Kethmer exhaled. When the silence ends, he said, it won't be with weapons. The council waited. And for the first time in galactic history, the most powerful civilizations in existence realized they were not waiting for an attack. They were waiting to be judged. The council tried to act busy. That's what frightened governments do when they don't understand what's happening. They create activity so panic feels like control. The security directorate assembled task forces. The Trade Coalition rerouted convoys. Smaller worlds began stockpiling fuel and food, pretending it was routine preparedness. Even the hegemony, proud, loud, arrogant hegemony, quietly recalled fleets from distant borders. But none of it mattered, because the galaxy wasn't being attacked the way they expected. It was being rearranged. Magistrate Kethmer spent most of his time now in a side chamber behind the council hall, staring at the archive wall's live status feed, like a doctor watching a patient's heartbeat. Contact phase initiating. No countdown. No details. Just a certainty. The council speaker called an emergency session anyway. Delegates arrived, tense, voices low, eyes scanning the room as if danger might be sitting in an empty chair. Ambassador Vrax arrived last, as always, posture stiff with defiance. "This has gone on long enough," he said loudly. "We will not be manipulated by phantom signals and superstitious elders. If anyone is responsible, it's pirates." A security directorate analyst interrupted him without permission. That alone made the chamber go quiet. "Speaker," the analyst said, voice tight, "we have new evidence. It is not piracy." The speaker's rings dimmed. Present, a star map appeared above the central dais. Hundreds of trade lanes glowed softly. Patrol routes traced dotted patterns between systems. Then the analyst highlighted a region near the quiet zone. A faint shadow spread across the map, like ink in water. "This," the analyst said, "is the comms null gradient." The Trade Coalition delegate bristled. "You said it was jamming." The analyst shook his head. "It isn't jamming. We misnamed it. It's not null." He swallowed. "It's replacement." The chamber tensed. Brack scoffed. "Replacement of what?" The analyst didn't answer directly. He tapped the first case file. Station K-19, status, operational. Crew missing. A video feed filled the air, a space station corridor. Lights on. Doors opening and closing. Air cycling. Everything normal. Except there were no people. No footsteps. No shadows crossing hallways. No voices. Just the soft mechanical breathing of a station doing its job without anyone inside it. Then the analyst pulled up the message log that station had sent that same morning. Fuel levels. Output yields. Maintenance schedules. And the final line. Weathercom. Request additional coffee concentrate. Several counselors shuddered. The speaker's rings flickered. Automated system. The analyst shook his head again. "It's not automated. We tested. The message contains linguistic quirks unique to the station manager. His punctuation habits, his spelling errors, even his sarcasm pattern." The Trade Coalition delegate whispered, "So someone is impersonating him." The analyst's voice dropped. "Not someone. Something with the station's encryption keys." That sentence hit the chamber like a slap. Council encryption keys weren't just passwords. They were stored in physical quantum locks. Losing one was like losing a piece of your soul. Vrack snapped, "Impossible." The analyst pulled up a cryptographic verification chain, glowing in neat lines. "Speaker," he said, "the signatures are perfect. Not cracked. Not copied. Used correctly." The room went still. If the signatures were perfect, then whoever was sending those messages wasn't breaking their security. They were inside it. The second case file was worse. A hegemony border relay transmitted a cheerful maintenance bulletin every 6 hours. Same time, same format, same humor. The analyst displayed the relay's exterior camera feed beside the message log. The relay's docking bays were open to vacuum. Its internal lights were flickering like a weak heartbeat. It looked abandoned, yet the messages kept coming, as if emptiness itself had learned how to file paperwork. A small world delegate whispered, "Why are they doing this?" Kethmer answered softly from his seat. "Because they want us to know," he said. "They want us to feel the difference between what we believe and what is true." Vrax leaned forward. "Or they want to spread fear." Kethmer finally looked at him. "Fear is a tool," he said. "Yes, but not their first tool." The third case file ended the argument. A council escort cruiser, assigned to protect a medical convoy, sent a routine check-in message. "Convoy secure. Proceeding to checkpoint." The message arrived cleanly, verified, fully authenticated. The convoy captain relaxed until they reached the checkpoint. The escort cruiser wasn't there. Long-range sensors showed nothing. No ship, no wreckage, no distress call. Just absence. Yet the message existed in the system, stamped with the cruiser's command authority. The speaker's rings trembled. "Explain." The analyst's voice shook. "Our best model is this. Whatever is behind this can insert reality-consistent messages into our network. They can make our systems believe an event happened even when it did not. The Trade Coalition delegate whispered, so they can rewrite truth. Kethmer corrected him gently. No, he said, they can rewrite our access to truth. That was worse. Then came the cube. The recovered hegemony cruiser, found drifting, intact, crew missing, was towed to a secure directorate lab. Engineers scanned it from every angle. No breaches, no battle damage, no signs of struggle. Doors sealed from the inside like the crew had simply stepped out of existence. On the bridge, resting on the command console like a deliberate gift, sat a small metal cube. Unmarked, clean, impossible. The analyst played the lab footage for the council. A technician held the cube with gloved hands. Instruments scanned it. No radiation. No magnetic signature. No heat. Nothing. It's inert, someone muttered in the video. Then a technician, frustrated, plugged the cube into a diagnostic port. The cube lit once. Every screen in the lab displayed the same message, translated into the technician's language. Hello. The council chamber collectively flinched, as if the word had been spoken directly into their minds. A second line appeared. Thank you for your curiosity. A third line. You are being evaluated. The Trade Coalition delegate's tentacles curled inward. That's direct contact. The speaker's rings dimmed, and it used our systems to speak. Kethmer nodded. Not to speak, he said softly. To confirm they can. Brack snapped. It's a trick. But his voice fell flat. Even he could feel how controlled the moment was. In the lab footage, the cube did something else. The technicians' computers began outputting solutions to problems they hadn't asked. Power efficiency improved. Signal clarity improved. Encryption models updated. Navigation calculations simplified. As if the cube wasn't merely communicating. It was teaching. The analyst paused the footage and faced the council. This is why we're calling it replacement, he said. They're not destroying our infrastructure. He swallowed. They're upgrading it. And that means they can also downgrade it. The chamber went ice cold. A small world delegate whispered. Why would they help us at all? Kethmer answered immediately. Because help could be a leash, he said. And a leash is more effective than a sword. That night, across the council capital system, devices lit up. Not hacked. Not overwritten. Not forced. Activated. Every comm panel, every defense screen, every private wrist display, from the speaker's core system down to the janitor's maintenance tablets, showed the same symbol. A simple blue circle around a white star. No intrusion alarm. No traceable origin. Just presence. Then a voice spoke. Human, calm, unhurried. Galactic Council, it said, we acknowledge your deliberations. The council chamber's cameras powered on automatically, even though nobody touched them. Delegates rushed back into their seats, hearts pounding. The voice continued. You attacked Earth. A pause, long enough to make everyone feel judged. That action has been recorded. Another pause. And now, the voice said softly, we will speak. A new line appeared beneath the symbol. Coordinates attached. Time window, 72 hours. The speaker's rings trembled. This is not a request. Kethmer closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. No, he whispered. It's a summons. The Trade Coalition delegate asked the question everyone was thinking. What happens if we don't go? Kethmer stared at the map, where the quiet zone shadow continued to spread. If we don't go, he said softly, the galaxy won't explode. He paused. It will simply become quiet. And for the first time, the council truly understood. Silence wasn't the absence of war. It was the presence of something so powerful it didn't need a shout. The coordinates led to empty space. That was the first thing that made everyone uncomfortable. No planet, no moon, no station beacon, no trade marker, no navigational landmark, just a cold patch of deep black between star systems, where the background constellations looked slightly too clean, like someone had scrubbed the sky. The Galactic Council arrived anyway, because the message hadn't sounded like diplomacy. It had sounded like a judge calling a courtroom to order. The speaker's flagship drifted at the center of the formation, surrounded by delegation ships arranged in a careful ring. Trade coalition cruisers kept a respectful distance. Security Directorate vessels ran passive scans nonstop, their crews sweating over instruments that showed nothing unusual and yet felt wrong in their bones. Even the hegemony arrived. Ambassador Vortex stood on the bridge of his delegation ship, arms folded, posture stiff. His face was carved into defiance, but his eyes kept flicking to the void ahead as if expecting something to jump out of it. "This is intimidation," he muttered. "A trick, a performance." Magistrate Kethmer stood near the speaker's avatar on the central bridge. He didn't argue. He didn't look triumphant. His expression carried only the calm sadness of someone who had seen history repeat too many times. "It's not a performance," Kethmer said quietly. Brax sneered. "Then what is it?" Kethmer's gaze remained fixed on the coordinates. "A test," he replied, "and we already failed it." The speaker's rings shimmered. Terran entity. It transmitted on open channel, voice formal but tense. "We have complied. We are present. State your terms." For several long seconds, the only response was the hum of reactors and the faint crackle of star radiation against shields. Then space moved, not like a ship arriving, not like a jump flash, more like the darkness itself slid aside, smoothly and silently, revealing an object that had apparently been there all along, hidden in the simplest way possible, by being exactly where no one expected to find anything. A structure unfolded, minimalist, impossible. A ring-like frame suspended without visible support, surfaces that swallowed light rather than reflecting it. There were no thrusters, no engine glow, no heat bloom. It didn't look built. It looked placed. A quiet tone pulsed through every ship's audio system at once. Not loud, not aggressive, just present. Then a single human word arrived through every translator, perfectly rendered. "Proceed." The speaker's rings tightened. "Proceed where?" A section of the structure opened. A doorway appeared in vacuum. No airlock, no tunnel, just an opening shaped like a threshold, the inside filled with a soft darkness that didn't behave like shadow. Security crews shifted uneasily. Pilots tightened grips. Even seasoned captains swallowed hard. Ambassador Vortex barked a laugh. "A trap." Kethmer nodded once. "Yes." Vortex glared at him. "And you're ready to walk into it?" Kethmer's voice came out flat. "Better a trap we can see than a silence we can't." The speaker made the decision. "We will enter," it said. The Council flagship moved forward first, engines low, weapons offline as demanded. The moment its bow crossed the threshold, every instrument on the bridge lit with warning signals. Then, instantly, every warning vanished. Not cleared, dismissed, as if some higher authority had looked at the ship's systems and decided what they were allowed to report. The starfield outside shifted. It was still space, but not. The stars looked distant, muted, like they were behind thick glass. The ship felt weightless and stable in a way that made engineers nervous. Then the flagship emerged into something that made every crew member fall silent. A chamber, vast, dark, and perfectly controlled. It was as if an entire section of reality had been carved out and shaped into a meeting hall. The walls were not walls, more like boundaries that told the mind, "You are inside now." A floating platform waited in the center, clean, bright, and unmistakably designed for one purpose. Conference. Seating arranged in arcs. Translation nodes hovering above. A central dais. It was ridiculous and terrifying. Because it meant the humans didn't just want a battle. They wanted a conversation. And they had built the room. One by one, the delegation ships entered through the threshold. Not docked, not tethered, simply positioned like pieces placed on a board. When the last ship crossed, the doorway vanished behind them. Not closed, vanished. A quiet panic rippled across bridges. Where's the exit? Can we reopen it? Scanners can't find the boundary. The Security Directorate Chief whispered, "We're contained." Ambassador Vortex snapped, voice rising, "This is kidnapping. You can't imprison the Council. Show yourselves." A soft tone chimed again, pleasant, almost polite. Lights along the platform brightened, revealing silhouettes. Humans. Dozens of them. Not towering monsters. Not armored beasts. Just humans in plain uniforms, standing still with hands relaxed at their sides, as if waiting for a late meeting to start. That simplicity made the room colder, because it meant they weren't trying to intimidate with appearance. They didn't need to. A human woman stepped forward from the center. Mid-aged, hair pulled back, calm eyes, no medals, no drama. The kind of face that belonged to someone who didn't raise her voice because her voice didn't require effort to be obeyed. "I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Chan," she said. Her words traveled perfectly, not through speakers, through the chamber itself, as if reality had agreed to carry them. The speaker's rings tightened. "Fleet Admiral, state your purpose." Sarah looked across the gathered ships and delegates without expression. "You attacked Earth," she said. Ambassador Vortex scoffed loudly. "We pacified a primitive world. If Earth mattered, you would have defended it." Sarah nodded once, as if he'd offered a predictable answer. "We did," she said. Vortex's upper hand spread wide. "Then where were your fleets? Where were your cannons? Your missiles? Your so-called strength?" Sarah's gaze did not shift. "Do you think defense must look like fire?" she asked. Kethmer whispered under his breath, "Observation protocol." Sarah's eyes flicked toward him briefly, recognition. "Yes," she said softly. "Observation protocol." The chamber stiffened. The speaker's rings dimmed. "You allowed the hegemony to strike Earth to observe them." Sarah corrected without hesitation. "We allowed the hegemony to strike Earth," she said, "to observe all of you." The Trade Coalition delegates' frills flared in outrage. "All of us." Sarah walked slowly along the edge of the platform, like a professor pacing before a lecture. "When Earth was struck," she said, "we measured reaction patterns across your civilizations." She lifted one hand, and the air filled with silent data, graphs, timelines, behavioral clusters, shown without readable labels, yet the meaning hit like a punch. "Who celebrated?" she continued. "Who condemned? Who hesitated? Who tried to profit? Who stayed silent?" The smaller world delegates stiffened, realizing they were being seen. Sarah's tone stayed calm. "We measured your military readiness, your media manipulation, your alliance fracture rates. We measured how quickly fear makes you lie." Vortex snapped. "You're justifying weakness with clever words." Sarah raised her hand. Every delegation ship's weapons system lit up at once. Not alarms. A single status display. Weapons didn't jam. They didn't misfire. They simply powered down. Across every ship. Simultaneously. Engineers slammed controls. Security chiefs shouted. Pilots tried manual overrides. Nothing changed. The weapons weren't broken. They were politely told they were not allowed to exist right now. Sarah lowered her hand. "That," she said, "is the difference between force and control." Silence returned, thicker than before. A new hologram formed beside Sarah. Admiral Vortex appeared, alive, standing in a plain human uniform, face hollow with shame. The hero of the Earth raid, now looking like a man who had been carefully emptied of arrogance. Ambassador Vortex stumbled forward. "Vortex." Vortex did not look at him. "It didn't torture me," Vortex said quietly, voice shaking. "They read me." Sarah spoke gently, as if explaining a simple principle. "We didn't destroy your fleets," she said. "We disabled them when necessary. We boarded when necessary. We learned what we needed." The speaker's rings trembled. "And what did you learn?" Sarah's eyes sharpened. "Enough," she said, "to decide the next era." She paused. "In 72 hours, you will ratify a new charter. No conquest, no forced annexation, no pacification initiatives. Any violation will result in mobility loss, weapons loss, and command authority suspension until compliance is restored." The chamber went dead silent, because everyone heard the unspoken truth behind her calm voice. "We can switch you off." Sarah's gaze slid to Ambassador Vortex. "And there's one final matter," she said. "The individual who ordered the first strike on Earth will answer for it." Vortex's breath stopped. He tried to speak, but for the first time in his life, the room belonged to someone else. Ambassador Vrax tried to regain the room the only way he knew how, by making noise. He stepped forward, upper hand spread wide in a practiced gesture that had silenced senators and terrified conquered worlds for decades. His mouth opened, ready to flood the chamber with confident words: law, doctrine, necessity, destiny. But before any sound came out, a soft chime rang through the space. Vrax's voice vanished, not muted by distance, not cut by interference. Gone, as if the chamber itself had decided his words did not deserve oxygen. Vrax's eyes bulged. He tried again. His throat moved. No sound. The hegemony officers behind him surged forward in panic, but their calm sparked uselessly against invisible limits. Even the speaker's rings flickered, unsettled by the sheer precision of it. Fleet Admiral Chan didn't look angry. She didn't look pleased. She looked focused. "I'm preventing him from turning consequences into theater," she said calmly, addressing the council as if she were correcting a minor procedural error. "He has had enough theater." The speaker's avatar floated forward, voice tense. "You are suppressing a council delegate." Sarah's gaze stayed level. "I am controlling the meeting," she replied. "You will notice you no longer can." That sentence landed harder than any threat, because it wasn't dramatic. It was simply true. Sarah lifted 2 fingers. A new hologram unfolded above the platform, clearer than any council projection system. So clear it made their own technology feel childish. It showed Earth, not the propaganda footage Ambassador Vrax had played, not the shallow, primitive world imagery. This Earth was layered with invisible information: orbital tracks, signal paths, atmospheric signatures, surveillance vectors. A living diagram of a planet that had been quietly watching the galaxy for a very long time. Sarah's voice remained steady. "This is the strike," she said. Hegemony ships appeared in the hollow, entering orbit. Their jammers activated. Their landing craft dropped through clouds. Their weapons fired into targets that looked, at first, like defense sites. Then the hollow zoomed in, and the defense sites moved. They shifted like pieces on a board. They rearranged before the strikes could land properly. Some vanished beneath the ocean. Others rose from the ground in different locations. The hegemony hit what looked like infrastructure, only to reveal hollow shells designed to be hit. The room got cold. Trade Coalition delegates leaned forward, realizing what they were seeing. A carefully staged weakness. A controlled environment. A gate that didn't slam shut. A gate that watched you try to walk through. Sarah nodded toward the Earth hollow. "You believed you were conquering," she said. "You were participating." The speaker's rings tightened. Participating in what? Sarah didn't hesitate. An evaluation. A second hollow opened beside the first. An uncomfortable one. It wasn't ships. It was reactions. World-by-world timelines displayed in silent streams. Broadcast spikes, military mobilization rates, economic reroutes, black market surges, alliance fractures, propaganda bursts. It was like watching the nervous system of the galaxy exposed on a table. Sarah's eyes swept the chamber. "When Earth was struck, we didn't need to invade you to learn who you are," she said. "You showed yourselves." She paused. "Some of you condemned it. Some of you celebrated. Some of you prepared to copy it. Some of you stayed silent because silence felt safe." The smaller delegations shifted uncomfortably. The Trade Coalition delegates' frills tightened. Even the speaker's rings dimmed slightly, as if ashamed of a system that had always tolerated conquest as long as it remained orderly. Sarah looked toward Admiral Vortex. "Vortex," she said softly. Admiral Vortex stepped forward, shoulders heavy. He looked like a man carrying a truth that had scraped him raw. Vrax stared at him, rage and disbelief fighting on his face. He tried to shout Vortex's name. No sound, only silent fury. Vortex didn't look at Vrax at first. He looked at the council, then down at his hands. "When I attacked Earth," Vortex said quietly, "I thought humans were prey." His voice cracked slightly. "They didn't fight like prey," he continued. "They didn't fight like soldiers either." He lifted his eyes. "They fought like engineers." A murmur spread. Sarah nodded once. "Because this wasn't war," she said. "It was exposure." The speaker's rings brightened. "You're saying you allowed it to happen to reveal us?" "Yes," Sarah replied. "And it worked." Vortex finally turned his gaze toward Vrax. He ordered the first strike, Vortex said, voice firm now. "Not the Fleet Council. Not the generals. Him." The chamber went still. Vrax's face went pale, then red, then pale again. He tried to deny it, tried to shout, tried to drown the accusation with authority. Nothing came out. Sarah lifted a hand, and a small icon appeared above Vrax's head. Simple, clinical. Voice privilege. Limited 10 seconds. Sarah lowered her fingers. Vrax's voice returned in a burst, desperate and sharp. "I did what any strong empire must do," he snapped. "We expand, or we die." Earth was unregistered. We had every right. The 10 seconds ended. Silence reclaimed a mid-breath. Sarah let the unfinished sentence hang in the air like a confession. Then she faced the council. "That," she said quietly, "is the disease." No one laughed. No one argued. Because too many worlds in that chamber had said the same thing, only with prettier words. Sarah's tone softened. Not kindness, but clarity. "We are not here to take your worlds," she said. "We are not here to rule you. We are not here to harvest your resources or your culture." She stepped forward slightly. "We are here because conquest scales," she said. "Small raids become annexations. Annexations become exterminations. Exterminations become a galaxy where no one builds anything lasting." The speaker's rings trembled. "And you believe you can stop that with a charter?" Sarah nodded. "Not with paper," she said. "With enforcement." A third hollow appeared, a hegemony sector map. It looked normal at first, systems glowing, trade routes lit, fleets displayed as neat icons. Sarah tapped one core naval yard, a major hegemony ship production hub, a symbol of their power. The node blinked once, then went dark. No explosion, no debris, no dramatic collapse, just darkness. A status strip appeared across every council display. Mobility disabled. Weapons offline. Command authority suspended. A wave of shock rolled through the chamber. Hegemony officers shouted into dead calms. Engineers slammed controls. Nothing responded. Vrax stumbled forward, eyes wide. Sarah didn't look at him. She tapped a second node. Another yard went dark. Then a third, far away, across a different sector. The message was unmistakable. This wasn't a local trick. This was reach. The Trade Coalition delegate whispered, "You can do this anywhere." Sarah met their gaze. "We can do it everywhere," she said simply. "Because you connected your civilizations to systems you didn't fully understand, and you called that progress." She looked toward the smaller worlds, the ones who lived under the shadow of bigger empires. "This charter will protect you," she said. "Not with promises, with a rule the strong cannot ignore." The speaker's rings dimmed. "And if we refuse?" Sarah's eyes returned to the map, then to the silent Vrax. "If you refuse," she said, "you will learn what quiet water really means." She didn't tap another node. She didn't need to. The council had already seen enough darkness to imagine the rest. Sarah straightened. "You have 72 hours to ratify the charter," she said. "No conquest. No forced annexation. No pacification. Violations trigger automatic suspension until compliance is restored." Then she paused, just long enough for every delegate to feel the weight of choosing. "And because you will ask," Sarah added, "yes, we will leave." The chamber stirred, confused. "We are not staying to govern you," she said. "We are staying close enough to ensure you govern yourselves responsibly." She turned slightly, and the doorway reappeared behind her, quiet, clean, unavoidable. Before stepping back, she delivered the final line, the one that would echo across generations. "You attacked Earth," she said softly. "Now, the galaxy learns what happens when you wake the thing that was pretending to sleep." The chamber lights dimmed again. The delegations were released. Ships returned to normal space. Stars looked normal. Comms worked. Everything looked the same. But no one felt the same. Because every empire, every counselor, every opportunist in the galaxy now understood a new law, one that wasn't written by treaties or voted on by diplomats. a law enforced by a calm human hand resting near a switch. And once you've seen your power go dark, you never forget what true power looks like.